Welcome everybody to the Open-E webinar. Just want to let you all know that today's webinar is the API, application interface, that we have a feature. We're going to explain how it works and how to use it with the DSS V6. Today is the Tuesday, May 31st, 2011. My name is Todd Maxwell. Along with me is Chris Wilson, our part of our Open-E sales team. Some of the topics that we've developed on this is the reason being is a lot of hosting companies are using the API function. They find it much faster than just using the GUI. And if you, by the way, we just started, so please check your sound, and there's a chat window in case you need to let me know if the sound's not coming through. So what we're going to be talking about is what the DSS V6 API function can do for you, enabling the API function with the DSS V6. And what we're going to do is stage the OpenSSH for Windows, although you can use other applications, they will work, to show you how to use the API function. We'll show you some ideas of how to demonstrate how to create volumes, users, and some other functions with the API. All right, let's begin. As you can see, there really is a lot here to go over. We're not going to go over all of these. We're just going to probably pick up some of them. But just to get you a general idea of how you can use it. So as you can see, you have really a large list, and this is just the first page where we go over to the other pages. Well, I just put in some of them here. As we'll be going over to create iSCSI logical volume. We'll create a NAS logical volume. You can see you can set the date, times, get a driver list, hardware status, NIC health. So there's a lot of descriptions here for each of them, all the way down for iSCSI and NAS shares that you can have. By the way, if you email me, and I'll give you my email address in the chat window at the end, you can email me and I will provide this list for you. If you have special other features in the list, let me know, and we'll look at see if we can add it to the list as it is growing. But here, some of this is very important because you can create batch scripts and be able to perform these functions much faster than going through the GUI. So we're seeing a lot of interest in the API function with DSS V6, especially in the hosting environments. Let's go take to the next page. So here you'll be able to see more of the NAS share listings. You have to create users and groups and remove them, rename them, set the NTP, and this is valuable for you that you can be able to do a lot of these functions. So let's go down. We'll see. You can see the also remove iSCSI volumes, get volume status. And of course, we just added this over with is the failover function. Now this is going to grow, but this is valuable for you to be able to go right into the API, create your scripts, and be able to stop, start, and get status on your failover. So let's go ahead and begin some of the functions I want to go over with you all. And by the way, at the end, we'll basically let you know when all the webinars are planned. So I'll show you on the site where you can view them once they get edited and produced. Let's stop the PowerPoint and let's go right into the DSS. So let's go here. I have DSS1 set up. This is the new version, 5377, which just released in this May, and there is going to be another release coming out soon. So one of the first things you want to do is you want to go into Setup in an Administrator, and then you want to scroll down to the bottom, and it's right underneath the Remote Console Access tool. For the API, you want to make sure that you have checked mark it. You can set an allow and deny, allow IP addresses, so you can specify certain IP addresses. The default port is 22,223. And of course, you're going to need a 5-character or either alphanumeric character password. You can go beyond that. There is the advanced, where if you wish not to use a password, you could generate a key that basically this key will help you to use without using a password. And I'm going to show you that. Now, we're not going to go into the generate download with the password because we've already got a document a lot of you are using. But if you ever need more information, you can just click right here on this question mark. And this provides information a little bit how to use the commands with the API, and also to download and generate the key so you don't have to enter the password. So this is very helpful. By the way, the username, what we have is API, so keep that in mind. Similar to the remote console access where we have CLI. So API is the user. So that would be the username that you apply on. So keep in mind that you can reference back to these commands, but keep also in mind that you cannot use special characters that contain these types of characters right here, nor can you use spaces in part of your passwords. Once you've set this, you're pretty much ready to go, and then what you want to do at this point is you want to make sure that you downloaded an SSH program. Currently, I am using Windows, the OpenSSH for Windows. So this is what I'm using to provide my API functions. So let's go over a couple things I want to show you. I've got my DSS V6 system set up with one volume group. So what we're going to show here is right now I just put a basic logical volume, a NAS logical volume. It has snapshot assigned to the LV0001, which is my NAS logical volume. So what we want to do is go right into a DOS prompt. And as you can see right here, I have also created some bat files. So these, basically, you can create as many as you want. Just to give you an idea of what one would look like, let's say if you were to create a bat file, you can create as many as you want. You can run them. Here I've got one called NAS share that's going to create a NAS share that I already named it, and then a NAS share remove. This NIC batch file I created is just providing NIC information, and of course we've got snapshot to start the snapshot and stop the snapshot. And so that's referencing to back over here on the DSS V6 to this snapshot right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to stop it, we're going to start it, and then we're going to stop it. And what this is valuable for is if you go into the Open-E website and you go to library, I want to show you something that might be helpful to you, especially with the password and encryption key. So if you go to libraries, how to resources, and you go right into the remote snapshot control API, this gives you a great detail of functionality and usage, especially with snapshot and databases. So we'll pretty much give you the information of how to use it and where to download the OpenSSH for Windows. And of course, once you create your NAS volume or iSCSI volume, and then of course create your snapshot and assign it, we give you some information of how to download and generate the key. So this way you can avoid putting the password in, and then we tell you how to apply the key. So here's an example that I wanted to provide you all. But we're not going to do the key right now, but I thought it'd be good information for you all to reference to. Okay, as we go back to the DSS V6, you see there's really nothing in here. So let's go ahead and let's put an iSCSI volume and a NAS volume using the API functionality with OpenSSH for Windows. And then what we'll do is I'll show you the batch files that I've created. So one of the first things you want to do is if you look here on the screen, what we're seeing here is we are at the root directory. Of course, you can point it to any directory you have where the OpenSSH is. I just have a path forward to there. So the ssh.exe file, this is referencing to the SSH, which is the first command that we're seeing. I'll move my cursor over so you can see it. So this would be your ssh.exe file. The -L is pointing to the API functionality that we're using. -2 for the version of the API. And the -P is the port number. If you remember, we default back to 22,223. And of course, we're specifying the IP address of the DSS V6. So going back again to help everybody have some clarity, again, you go to Setup Administrator and go all the way down to the API function. And there you can see the port number, and of course, you set your password and the allow IPs addresses. Now again, if you click right here on the question mark, you pretty much get the same output that I had before in some option descriptions of the version of the protocol, and the set the port with the -5P is what we're talking about. So let's go back to our command prompt here. And so at this point, I'm going to create an iSCSI logical volume. So in the command, what we want to be able to do is make sure we have the first parameters all the way up to the IP address, specifying the DSS V6. Right after that is when you start utilizing the API function commands. So what we're saying here is create underscore iSCSI, LV meaning logical volume, space, and then of course we specify the volume group. Now if you had other volume groups, let's say a VG01, you would specify VG01. Here I have one volume group enabled, so we're going to use VG00. And of course, we're going to put a space there. And 64 is referencing to the size. So in 32 megs, and it's also explained into our release notes as well. Into the explanation that we have. So when you use it, we can give you some information. It's also in the information that I have. If you ask me on how that works, I'll be happy to show you. But 64 would reference to a certain size meg. You can change it to 32, which is 32 megs. And of course, then I'll specify, is it going to be block I/O or file I/O? So let's go ahead and see what we have. We're going to enter it, and then it's going to go connect to the DSS V6 and prompt us with our password. At this point, what it's going to do is going to start telling the DSS V6 to create the size of logical volume 00, which is grabbed for the first order. And now let's check our DSS V6 and go into the configuration, volume manager, and volume groups, and go to VG00. Now we should be able to see our iSCSI volume, which equated to 2 gig. So we'll go into the math. It's 1024 megabytes. Based on 32, the formula that I'll give you all that you could use, you can increase that to as high as you want it. But there it just created the default of the LV00 for the iSCSI volume block I/O. Now we can also remove the iSCSI as well. So if we were to take the quotation we have here, we just arrow up so I don't have to retype it all. And let's just back down on it. And what we'll do is we'll say volume underscore iSCSI underscore remove. Now you're going to have to specify which logical volume you are removing. So if you look back over here on the left, we'll see that it created LV0000, and so we want to specify the same value. And it's going to present you with the password. So if I want to create your key, and you'll see why it's needed without a password, so it saves you some time. Okay, now let's check the DSS V6, and it's removed. So you can see the value of using the API function and how quick it is, where you don't have to go and log into the GUI of the DSS V6. This also works similarly with NAS volumes. We'll just go back up, and what we'll do is we'll say, and it's as similar as the first one. We can almost basically just state this one. Let's go back here and create NAS LV. Now, I made a mistake here, and I did that purposely. I wanted to show you that in case you don't know, you'll see a list of measurements of what size it needs. Also, it needed the volume group name. Now, notice before the first one we did, we specified that this iSCSI right here, logical volume VG0064, which was equals to the amount of 32 times 32 megs equals 1024 megabytes. So, which gives you 1 gig. So this is where you get your calculations from, and you size your parameters that equals to 32. And so we instruct you with that. So in case you make a mistake, you'll be able to calculate it from here and be able to understand better. So if you look at these parameters, it's telling me that I need to create the NAS create underscore NAS logical volume, but I have to specify, if you look there, it says VG underscore name, and then of course the size. And specify if it has worm value, which is the write once, read many. So let's try it again this time. So I did not fulfill the requirements, so this time I'm going to complete it. So I'm going to say VG00 and then specify the size. So let's just do 256. And then that's going to create my volume once I create and enter my password. And then let's go back to the DSS and look at our NAS volume. And there you see that we have an 8 gig NAS volume. So that's real simple and fast, as you can see right into the API function, how quick you can create these types of NAS volumes. And let's do some other stuff that I want to show you. Is that I want to show you the some of the batch files I created. Let's look at NIC. So in case you don't want to type it out, you can create these batch files and have them run on a script. Here it's just basically I want to get a NIC list. So that batch file is already created. And this gives me my NIC list. So it provides me all the information of, you can see ETH0 and ETH1. They're actively on, specifying the IP address, and also the subnet and also the MAC address. So that's very helpful. Let's go look at another DSS list that I created. Okay, so now what we want to do is let's do the snapshot start, and then we'll do the snapshot stop. So let's go snap shot. And there's the command that I've created that's in the batch file. And so that's going to start the snapshot. Now let's check DSS V6 and see if it did it. So here's our snapshot that's assigned to LV0001, which is our NAS volume. We go to maintenance, and we'll go to snapshot, and we see that the snapshot is now running. So you can tell this by the start time, where we're at right now, which is 2:18, and therefore it's denoting that if I want to stop it. So now let's go ahead and stop it. And again, that document that I pointed out in the very beginning provides you the same information that I'm doing right now. But it's just good to see how it works in action. So I've created another batch file called snapshot stop. Okay, so let's go ahead and run it. And that should stop the snapshot. And let's check. And there you can see it instantly stopped. So that would be really great to, especially for databases and you're wanting to take a snapshot of the database, but you want to stop and start the snapshots to work with your databases when you stop them. And that's where that document that I wanted to point out to everybody to take a look at that and also show it to you here. Now we've created the iSCSI logical volume and NAS logical volume. What we could do is let's create another NAS logical volume. So let's take a look at our volume group. And we see that we did create that NAS logical volume. Now let's put a share on there. So right now, let's go back. Didn't mean to show you all around. Let's just go to configuration, NAS resources, then NAS shares, and we see that we don't have any shares or users. All right, let's go ahead and create our API for that. Again, I created another batch file called NAS share. And there you can see I created the NAS share called NAS underscore share underscore create space the share name. So it would be DSS V6 that I've created. And then, of course, I'm specifying that it would be assigned to logical volume 0001. So let's take a look at DSS V6. And there it is. So we have specified the share name to be DSS V6, and it should be under the logical volume of LV0001. And so that's how you use those commands when you reference back to the list that we have. And again, if you mess up, let's look at what happens if you're not creating the proper information. So we can say SSH minus L space API space -2 for the version, -P for the port, 223, then the IP address of the DSS V6, where we've enabled the API function. Now let's go ahead and say NAS underscore share underscore create, and let's state test files and hit enter. So again, you want to specify the share name, and of course the message comes up because we did not specify the logical volume. So if you look here, it says usage NAS share underscore create, the name. Then it needs the location, the logical volume that exists in the system. And of course, if you want to create a comment, you can. So this is very helpful when you go ahead and set this up. So now let's take a look if we do it properly, because it's asking for the logical volume, LV0001. So now we'll be able to create another share called test files and be able to have it placed on there. Now let's check. And there you go. So it's very fast, and a lot of people do like using the API function, especially in hosting environments where you have a bunch of scripts, you can run them and also tie it into something where you can support your customers. Now let's add, I think what would be really neat is if we started adding users to that as well. So if we go back to, let's do NAS share remove before we add users. So previously we had the DSS V6 share, and what we're going to do is remove that through the API command. So NAS share remove. And there I'm denoting now, this time I don't have to place the logical volume. It will know where that DSS V6. And there's your message share is removed, and it's passed OK. And now we just have just one share there. So now what happens if we want to add a user? So you can see the list as it goes on. There's just so much you can do. Let's take a look at our list. We've got, let's see, NAS share, NAS remove, and let's go ahead and let's create the NAS share. We're going to put DSS V6 on there again. Okay, so now we have our DSS V6 NAS share. Now let's go ahead and add a user. So here we're going to go NAS underscore user underscore add. And let's say Greg is the user, space, and we're going to need a password. So here we'll just do 131313. So you could, if you had, let's say, a lot of users and you want to keep records of them, you can add them real quickly and be able to have them instantly on the DSS V6 instead of clicking through all the mouse clicks and creating it. This will save you a lot of time. So on the DSS V6, we should see a user as it denoted. It was added successfully. And there's Greg. So now you can see, then you can add greater details. You can add it to a specific share for that user. And so this is very helpful for getting a little bit more granular to the users and shares. So if we want to remove the NAS user, what we would do is go back to NAS user remove, and we specify the user. And there is no password necessary. So pretty much the instructions is usually you'll see NAS share underscore edit, NAS share groups, and you could do get the list of users. Oops, bad password. There we go. So now we should be able to see, let's see if it's removed. There we go. Perfect. Okay, let's look at some of the other listings I have. I should have one in here that I wanted to create NICBAT. And I think we showed the NICBAT, but one of the other ones is the memory status and hardware status. So let's take a look at what we can do here. So let's say you want to find out information concerning the DSS hardware status. And you got to remember that you must set up the hardware status in the GUI and also in the console screen. In the console under Control-Alt-W. Now I've already set that up, and that's just for another topic, but you want to set up your hardware status. So basically what you want to do is on your DSS V6, normally you would go to Status, Hardware. If you scroll down, you'll see that I have some information about the hardware monitoring. Now it takes a second to load because it's getting all the information. Here you can see the voltage for the CPU, the temperatures, the fan information, and so forth. So what we want to do is we want to be able to get that information readily and quickly to us. So we have our SSH command ready to go. At this point we can go at get underscore HW for hardware and then status. And let's see what we have. Now it's going to collect that information and then provide it output right on our screen. And it does take a little bit longer, similar to there, but there we go. So here you can get all your information and copy and paste that and keep that for your records. And see, we can also get a memory status. So let's say if we wanted to find out how our memory is doing. Memory status. Remember, you can run a bunch of these at the same time. So I may have another window that I can use, another command prompt, and have multiples of it. So this gives my memory information. What's total? I have 8 gig. I have 7 gig free. This tells me what's being cached and what's actively being used and so forth. So I get a lot of information on there. And of course you can get also the NIC health. So let's say you want to verify if you're getting any bad packets, or if you're feeling that there's probably some physical issues, or could be some receive, or let's say get our bad packets or transmitting bad packets. Let's find out what we have here. So if we go to get underscore NIC health. Okay, this is why I like doing a lot of these things that show them live. So I didn't specify something here. So obviously I need the network interface. So all we would do is ETH0, because we want to specify which NIC. So even if you're working through some of these APIs and you're not familiar, you'll always get presented. Okay, so that's the device does not work. So let's go to ETH1. Oh, I think I see my problem. Okay, so what we have a problem here is a typo error. So we want to go ETH1 where I had EHT1. So even your presenter can make mistakes. All right, we should be able to get some information now. Okay, so here I see that my received RX drop packets are 0, so I don't have any errors, either frames or collisions, so it's very clean. Well, I hope that shares some of the information to you about how to use some of the information of the API functionality. Again, I want you to email me back for a whole list of them and I can supply you this. But it's very important to notice that you have a lot of flexibility with the DSS V6 when using the API function that we have. And of course, we're going to add more of these functionalities as we grow. A lot of you may have a specific need for it. We will be adding them as we grow, but I want to go back again you're going to be able to get right back into its snapshot. This is really used a lot is the API function, and that's why we put it in here, is use remote snapshot control with the API of DSS V6. And again, where do you find all the webinars and videos that are being recorded? If you go to Library, Webcasts and Videos, and right here you'll see a plethora of information. This is where we're going to put the APIs, how to use it. So it's real simple. I hope that helps everybody out, and I want to thank you all for attending, and have a great day. Thank you.